I sat there in the sterile hospital room, the fluorescent lights above flickering faintly. The pain from the surgery still throbbed in my abdomen, and every breath I took seemed to remind me of just how vulnerable I was. At 63, I had spent my life saving others, but now I found myself in a hospital bed, unable to even walk on my own. The reality of aging was hitting me harder than the physical pain. My name is Evelyn Morris. I've been a surgeon for decades, dedicated to my patients, my work, and my family. Now, retired, I was supposed to be enjoying the fruits of my labor, peace, quiet, and maybe some time for myself. But here I was, facing an emergency surgery and the harsh truth that the world didn't seem to care about me the way it used to. Not even my son. I glanced at my phone, still lying on the bed beside me. I had just been discharged, but I couldn't walk yet. I needed help, a simple request, a call to my son, Jake, who was supposed to be there for me like I had always been there for him. I typed out the message. "Jake, I'm being discharged now. Can you pick me up? I can't walk yet." I hit send and waited, feeling a mix of hope and exhaustion. Maybe, just maybe, this time he'd come through. After all, I had supported him his whole life. From his college tuition to helping him get his business off the ground, I had done it all. I just needed him to show up for me now. The phone buzzed. A quick response. My heart skipped a beat as I looked at the screen, expecting the words I longed to hear. "Mom, I'm too busy right now. Just take an Uber or something." The words hit me like a slap in the face. The sting was immediate and deep. Too busy, that was all. No offer of help. No concern for the woman who had raised him, who had sacrificed so much for him. My breath caught in my chest, and for a moment the room seemed to close in on me. I sat there, staring at the screen, trying to process the coldness in his message. How had we gotten here? Had all those years of helping, of supporting him financially, emotionally, even co-signing his loans, had it all meant so little? I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the flood of emotions wash over me. Betrayal, disappointment, a sense of invisibility. For so many years, I had been the one who fixed everything for him. But now, when I needed help, when I was vulnerable, it felt like I was nothing more than an inconvenience. I tried to tell myself it was no big deal, that maybe he was just busy, that maybe I was overreacting. But deep down, I knew the truth. This wasn't the first time he had brushed me off. It wasn't the first time I had been pushed aside in favor of his own ambitions and distractions. The quiet hum of the hospital room was the only sound, but it felt like the weight of the world was on my shoulders. I had given him everything, my time, my money, my love. And now, I was left here, alone, at my most vulnerable, with nothing more than a text telling me to get a ride on my own. Without another thought, I picked up the phone again, but this time I didn't send another text to Jake. Instead, I called a cab. It wasn't the Uber I had expected, but it was the choice I needed to make. I couldn't wait for him anymore. As the nurse came to wheel me out, I realized something had changed. Something deep inside me snapped. I wasn't going to wait for someone who didn't care enough to show up. I wasn't going to sit in this hospital room anymore, waiting for someone who would never come through. I was going to take control. I didn't need him. I would be fine on my own. The cab ride was quiet, the city whizzing by outside the window as I stared at the passing buildings, lost in thought. I'd been waiting for something, for Jake to come through, for my family to see me as more than just a source of financial support. But I was done waiting. I had given so much of myself for so long, and in return, all I had was a text telling me to call an Uber. The cab stopped in front of my apartment building, and I stepped out slowly, feeling the weight of the moment. As I made my way up the stairs to my door, I couldn't shake the overwhelming sense of disappointment. How had my life turned into this? How had I become so invisible, even to my own son? I opened the door to my apartment, a place that used to feel like home, warm, welcoming, familiar. Now it felt different. It felt empty. I didn't even want to think about the things I had sacrificed over the years for a family that no longer seemed to care. But I wasn't alone, not yet. I still had one person left, someone who had been there for me when I needed them most. I grabbed my phone, searching for the number I hadn't dialed in years, the number of someone I hadn't spoken to in decades. Lily Carter. Lily and I had been inseparable once, two young souls with big dreams, our future painted in bright, hopeful colors. But life had a way of pulling us apart, sending us in different directions. I had married, had children, while she had moved away, built a career in law, becoming a successful corporate fraud lawyer. But no matter the time that had passed, I knew Lily had never truly left my heart. We had promised each other once that no matter what happened in life, we would always be there for each other. I hesitated for only a moment before hitting the call button. The phone rang a few times, and then I heard her familiar voice on the other end. "Evelyn," she said, her voice soft and warm like a comforting embrace. "I wasn't expecting to hear from you." "I know," I said, my voice trembling a little. "I didn't expect to be calling you either, but I need help, Lily. I need someone who understands, someone who won't judge me." There was a long pause, then she spoke again, her tone serious. "Of course, Evelyn, whatever you need. I'm here. Let's meet." We agreed to meet the next day at a cafe near my place. I hung up the phone, my heart swelling with both relief and uncertainty. I hadn't realized just how much I missed her presence until that moment. Lily always had a way of making me feel seen, heard, like I mattered. The next day, I met her at the cafe. Lily looked the same, sharp, confident, with that unmistakable spark in her eyes. But there was something else now, a sense of calm, like she had found her place in the world. She smiled when she saw me, and for a moment, I was that young woman again, standing by her side, filled with dreams and promise. We sat down and I told her everything. The text from Jake, the years of sacrifice, the way I had been left to fend for myself. I spoke without hesitation, without fear of judgment. And Lily listened, her eyes soft with understanding. When I finished, she set down her coffee and looked at me seriously. "Evelyn, you've been letting him walk all over you. And I hate to say it, but you've let him manipulate you for far too long. He's using you financially and emotionally. And it's time you took control back." Her words stung, but they were the truth. I had been enabling Jake's selfishness for so long, telling myself it was out of love, out of care. But deep down, I knew I had been afraid to let go, afraid to admit that my son was taking advantage of me. Lily leaned forward, her expression intense. "You're a brilliant woman, Evelyn. You've always been. You don't need to rely on him or anyone else. You need to take charge for your own sake, and we're going to make sure you get the respect you deserve." For the first time in years, I felt a spark of something inside me, something I hadn't realized I'd lost, confidence. I wasn't just a mother anymore. I was a person, a woman who had built a career, a woman who had loved deeply and worked hard. I had the power to change my life. I nodded slowly, feeling the weight on my shoulders start to lift. I wasn't invisible. I wasn't useless. And I certainly wasn't going to let Jake or anyone define me anymore. The days following my meeting with Lily were filled with a sense of urgency. I knew the road ahead wasn't going to be easy, but for the first time in a long while, I felt like I had a plan, a real plan. And it wasn't just about surviving anymore, it was about reclaiming my life. Lily's words echoed in my mind. "You don't need him. You're stronger than you think, Evelyn. You've always been. It's time to take control." The more I thought about it, the clearer everything became. Jake had been using me, using my love and my generosity to keep his life afloat while keeping me at arm's length emotionally. I'd spent so many years thinking I was helping, that I was being a good mother, but now I saw it for what it really was, a manipulation. I had to stop enabling him. I had to make a decision that would change everything, not just for him, but for me. I sat down at my kitchen table, paper and pen in hand, and started outlining what I needed to do. The first thing I wrote down, legal action. I knew I had to hit him where it would hurt, financially and legally. Jake's company, his house, his assets, everything he had been hiding behind could be mine to take control of if I played this right. Lily had already made it clear that, as a co-signer on his mortgage, I had a lot more power than I realized. All I needed was to make the right move. I couldn't let him keep running away from his consequences. Step 1. Gather evidence. Lily had contacts in the legal world, and she promised to help me pull together the necessary paperwork. Bank statements, loan documents, medical records, all the lies Jake had fed to the bank to manipulate them into believing I was an incapacitated elderly woman in need of constant care. I had trusted him with everything, but now I saw the trail of deceit. Step 2. Confront him. I knew the confrontation had to come. I wasn't going to let Jake think he could continue using me and treating me like I was invisible. I would confront him face to face, calmly and assertively, without tears, without guilt. This wasn't about anger, it was about clarity and strength. He had to know that I was no longer the mother he could walk all over. Step 3. Take legal action. This was the most difficult part. I had to be prepared to take the step of freezing his assets, cutting off his access to my money, and demanding financial restitution. Lily would help me through the legal process, but the emotional side was mine to navigate. I had to make sure Jake understood that this wasn't just about money, it was about respect. He had used me for too long, and it was time for him to face the consequences of his actions. Step 4. Regain my independence. I couldn't let this be about revenge. It had to be about me regaining control of my life, my finances, and my peace of mind. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that Jake's betrayal wasn't just financial, it was emotional. He had been exploiting my love, my trust, but I wasn't going to let him take any more from me. This was about creating a new path forward, one where I was no longer at the mercy of anyone else. That evening, after a long day of strategizing and organizing, I sat in front of the mirror. I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. I had always been the fixer, the one who took care of everyone else. But tonight, for the first time in a long time, I saw something different. I saw strength. I wasn't just the mother who had sacrificed for her son anymore. I wasn't just the woman who had been taken advantage of for far too long. I was someone who had the power to turn things around, and I wasn't going to let anyone, not even Jake, take that away from me. I picked up my phone and called Lily. "It's time," I said, my voice steady but firm. "Let's do this." She didn't need to ask me twice. "I'll be there tomorrow morning. We'll start making the calls." The day of the confrontation came faster than I expected. I had spent days preparing for this moment, gathering evidence, consulting with Lily, and finally taking ownership of the situation. But now, as I stood in front of Jake's house, a sense of unease settled in my chest. This was it. There was no turning back. I had to face the person who had used me, deceived me, and taken advantage of my love for far too long. I wasn't sure what I would find when I walked through that door, but I knew one thing for sure. I was done being invisible. Lily, ever the calm and steady presence, stood beside me as we rang the doorbell. We hadn't told Jake we were coming. This wasn't a visit to talk things over or work things out. This was a reckoning. The door opened and there stood Jake. He looked the same, yet different. Confident, a little too confident, like everything in his life was falling into place. But there was something about his eyes, something that flickered the moment he saw me. I didn't flinch. "Mom, what are you doing here?" His voice was casual, almost too casual. I could hear the unease in it. He hadn't expected me. I looked him straight in the eye. "We need to talk, Jake." Jake's face dropped slightly, but only for a moment. He stepped aside, motioning for us to come in. "Come on in, I guess. Sophie's inside." I wasn't interested in Sophie. Not today. We entered the house, a place I had helped him furnish and settle into, a house that now felt like a stranger's. I could smell the expensive candles Jake and Sophie liked to burn, but none of the warmth I had once felt here. There was no familiarity left, just coldness. We sat down in the living room. Jake and Sophie exchanged a glance. She was sitting on the couch, nervously picking at her nails. There was tension in the air, and I could feel it building. This wasn't just a conversation about money. It was about respect, boundaries, and betrayal. I sat up straight, my back stiff with purpose. "Jake, I know what you've been doing, and I'm done turning a blind eye." He blinked, trying to play it off. "What are you talking about, Mom? I didn't let him finish. "You've been lying to the bank. You've been using my name to get loans, claiming I'm incapable of handling my own finances, that I need full-time care. You've been draining my resources and making me co-sign for your debts without my knowledge." I could see the shock on his face. He had thought I wouldn't catch on. He thought I wouldn't notice how he had been using my name, my reputation, as a crutch for his own mistakes. "That's not how it is, Mom. I've been trying to help you," Jake started, but his voice cracked slightly, betraying his guilt. "I've been paying you back, haven't I?" I cut him off. "Paying me back? You've been using me. Not once did you think about the consequences. You lied about my health to get a loan modification, all while I've been supporting you financially. I trusted you, Jake, and you've taken advantage of that." Sophie was sitting silently now, her eyes wide, glancing back and forth between Jake and me. She hadn't said a word, but I could tell she was starting to piece things together. This wasn't just about me and Jake anymore. It was about the lies that had been hiding in plain sight. Jake opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. For the first time, he seemed at a loss. I wasn't sure if he was trying to hold on to his facade or if he was truly realizing just how deep the hole he'd dug for himself had become. I pressed on. "I want you to understand something, Jake. This isn't just about money. It's about respect. I've given you everything I could, but I can't keep doing it. I'm done being your safety net. You need to take responsibility for your own actions." Jake's face flushed red. "What do you want from me, Mom? I can explain." "No, you've had your chance," I said, my voice steady but firm. "I'm not here to hear excuses. I'm here to tell you what's going to happen next. I'm taking legal action." His eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "I'm freezing your assets. I'm demanding financial restitution. I'm taking control of the company you've been using my name for. And I'm not asking for your permission, Jake. I'm doing it." Jake's jaw clenched. "You can't do this. You're my mother." I leaned forward, meeting his gaze with a calm intensity. "Exactly. I am your mother. And because I love you, I'm doing this. But don't think for a second that I'll let you destroy everything I've worked for just so you can live comfortably without facing the consequences of your choices." The silence in the room was heavy. Sophie, who had been quietly watching the exchange, finally spoke. "Jake, is this true?" she asked softly, her voice trembling. Jake hesitated, his eyes flicking to me before looking down at the floor. "Yes, but—" "There are no buts," I said, cutting him off. "You've betrayed me and you've lied to everyone around you. You've taken advantage of my love, my trust, and you thought I wouldn't notice. Well, now I have." I turned to Sophie, who was now visibly shaken. "You deserve better than this, Sophie. And if you want to continue standing by someone who would do this to his own mother, that's your choice. But know this, you've been part of this lie too." Sophie didn't respond. She just sat there, staring at the floor, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. I stood up, straightening my blouse and looking at Jake one last time. "I want you to take responsibility, Jake. You're not a child anymore. You're not my problem to fix. If you want to keep your life intact, you'll start facing up to your mistakes." Jake's face was pale now, his bravado completely gone. The man who had once been so sure of himself was now just a boy, caught in the consequences of his own selfishness. I turned to leave, my heart pounding in my chest. I hadn't felt this strong in years. But as I walked out of his house, I knew I had done the right thing. For the first time in a long while, I felt free. The next morning, as I sat in my apartment, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted inside me. The confrontation with Jake had been painful but necessary. The look on his face, shock, guilt, and fear, had been worth every second of the emotional weight I'd carried. It was the first time in years that I felt like I was in control, not just of the situation, but of my life. But now I had to follow through with the plan. The next steps couldn't wait. I looked down at the papers spread across my kitchen table: loan documents, bank statements, medical records, proof of Jake's lies. I could feel the weight of it all pressing down on me. It was no longer about the money. It was about the principle, about reclaiming what was rightfully mine and making sure Jake faced the consequences of his betrayal. My phone buzzed, snapping me out of my thoughts. It was a text from Lily. "I've spoken with the lawyer. We have enough to take this to court. Are you ready to move forward?" I hesitated for a moment, taking a deep breath. Ready? Was I really ready to take this final step? The idea of dragging everything into the open, of confronting the full extent of Jake's actions in a courtroom, was daunting. But then I remembered the look on his face when I told him I was freezing his assets, when I demanded he take responsibility. I was done letting him get away with it. I replied to Lily, "Let's do it. He won't know what hit him." The next few days were a blur of legal documents, meetings with Lily's team, and phone calls. As much as I wanted to push everything aside and pretend like I hadn't just shaken up my family's life, I couldn't. This wasn't just about my son's betrayal, it was about me taking control. And once that ball started rolling, there was no stopping it. Then came the day Jake called. "Mom, I think we need to talk." His voice sounded desperate, almost pleading. I wasn't sure what I expected, but it wasn't this. Was this really Jake, the same man who, just days ago, had brushed me off like I was an inconvenience? I took a deep breath. This was it, the moment I'd been preparing for. "I'm not interested in your excuses, Jake," I said, my voice calm but firm. "You've made your bed, now lie in it." "Mom, please, I'm sorry, I messed up, I know, I'm trying to fix things," Jake said quickly, his voice trembling. "I want to make this right." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It sounded almost like a confession, but I knew better than to believe him so easily. "You've had your chances, Jake," I said. "You lied to me, you lied to the bank, and now you've put me in a position where I have to take legal action. You think an apology is enough?" There was a long silence on the other end of the line, followed by a shaky sigh. "I don't know what else to say. I sold the business. I don't have the money, but I'm trying to make it right. I'll pay you back, Mom, I promise." A twist. Just like that, my son had sold the business he had been hiding behind for years. Was it out of desperation, guilt, or was this his attempt to keep the truth from being fully exposed? I didn't know. I only knew that it didn't matter. "It's too late for that," I said. "The legal papers are already in motion. You'll have to face the consequences, but maybe, just maybe, I'll let you back in my life if you can prove that you've changed." His voice cracked. "How do I prove that, Mom? What do you want from me?" I paused, knowing that what I said next could change everything. "I want honesty, no more lies. I want to see you actually work for what you've taken from me. And I want you to show me that you're willing to face up to your actions, not just apologize for them." I hung up the phone without waiting for a response. I had made my decision. The ball was in his court now. The days that followed were a mixture of relief and frustration. I had made the decision to take control, but now I had to wait and see if Jake would follow through. Would he be the man he was capable of being, or would he crumble under the weight of his mistakes? A week later, I received a check for the amount he owed me, $67,000. It was more than just the money. It was his attempt to make things right, even if it wasn't perfect. I didn't know if this meant he was truly changing, but it was a start. I didn't feel victorious, though. Not yet. The legal battle was far from over, and I knew that this was only one chapter of a much larger story. But it was a step forward, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was the one in control. Then came the call that I wasn't expecting. "Mom, I'm sorry. I've been to therapy and I've learned a lot about myself. I know I've hurt you. I want to earn your trust back. Please give me a chance." I wasn't sure what to say. My emotions were a whirl of confusion, relief, anger, and sadness. He wasn't the son I had hoped for, but maybe, just maybe, he was trying to become the person I knew he could be.